Jenna Bosonko, and this is QTV News coming to you live from our studios along Caraba Avenue. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main local, business, international and sports news headlines. A survivor of the 2005 massacre of West African migrants has related his ordeal to the TRRC and how he managed to escape and survive. He has become one of the first countries to receive a consignment of syringes from the COVAX facility for equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. At a signing ceremony on Monday at its embassy in Bijilo, the ambassador of the People's Republic of China to the Gambia announced that his country will donate 2,500 metric tons of rice to the Gambia. In international news, every year on 1st March, the world celebrates Zero Discrimination Day, a day to think about eliminating all forms of discrimination. In sports news, Gambia's under-20 football team lost the AFCON semi-finals against Ghana. Women footballers in the Gambia have expressed their frustrations at the ongoing delay to the start of their league season. Well, those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. Thank you for joining us. If you're just tuning in, you are watching QTV News. Now, at the TRRC, a survivor of the 2005 massacre of West African migrants related the tale of how they came to be captured and the ordeal they went through.
All it took was a leap from the pickup truck into the thick forest. Junglers touched searchlights and bullets whistled around him as he desperately ran for his life. Martin Chere is the only known survivor of a group of 56 West African migrants, including 44 Ghanaians, Nigerians, Togolese and Senegalese nationals who were murdered in the Gambia in July 2005 by the junglers. They were arrested at Barra after they were brought into the country to meet up with a Gambian agent by the name Lamin Tunkara, who was going to help them travel to Europe by boat. Mistaken for mercenaries, the group was transported to the Navy headquarters in Banjul under heavy guard. The witness says they were being beaten and maltreated from Banjul to Barra, and went on to narrate how some of his colleagues lost their teeth and sustained serious injuries as a result of the beatings.
Soldiers with cutlass is not about asking you where you are coming from, but rather beating you.
You said
soldiers with cutlass and guns. Yes. So, initial stage, the way they are beating and the things going, we thought that they are going to put us in the sea. So we were brought to Banjul port. When you come down from the vessel, you meet a soldier with long cutlass.
They were later that night transferred to different police stations, including Bundung and Karaba police stations, in groups of 8. And to this day, the witness says 6 of his colleagues remain unaccounted for. Furthermore, he says after a week in detention, 8 of them, including their Gambian agent Lamin Tunkara, were taken to an incomplete building where they were kept for hours before being taken to the bush for execution. He adds that they were brutalized by the junglers. One of his colleagues was cut on the arm, while another was cut on the back as he struggled to breathe.
They used the same thing to tie his handles here, and also my hand is like this. And they use the rest of the wire to tie to your neck, and you are looking up, and they use the same wire to tie this guy also neck. So they are all looking at.
But how would you get into the vehicle?
They push them. When after the tightening take place outside the vehicle, so after that you go close to the vehicle, then they push you. So when you get down with your chest, other guy also lie at the left hand, and other guy also at the right hand, and the guy at the top is sitting or lying on you.
Narrating his narrow escape, the witness says while he lay in the dark, he had voices resembling that of his colleagues agonizing in pain as they helplessly begged their killers to spare their lives.
I don't know. You are going to be killed. And I'm from here. I'll go and tell my family, go and tell my people. It's not.
No more man and crash said the beya to say the medical cano. Obey me a couple one bush and 4 amane say assembly.
And It was at that time I decided to jump from the pickup.
Having spent 4 days in the forest, the witness says he eventually managed to get to a village in Casamas before traveling to Dakar and eventually back to Ghana. With the fate of some of his colleagues still unknown, Chere says all he wants is justice for his brothers. Earlier on Monday, Pa Amadi Jallo, former police crime management coordinator, also testified in connection to the killing of the West African migrants. Answane Sonyasi for Qtv News.
The Gambia has become one of the first countries to receive a consignment of syringes from the COVAX facility, a global collaboration for equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. A shipment of more than 37,000 syringes arrived last night at the Banjul International Airport ahead of the arrival of the first batch of vaccines from the same initiative. Momodu Lamin Choi has the rest of that.
A moment of hope has arrived in our country, setting the stage for a cost-effective scientific battle against the coronavirus pandemic in the form of vaccinations. The Ministry of Health last night received a shipment of more than 37,000 syringes and 375 safety boxes. The syringes will support the Gambia's rollout of COVID-19 vaccines and is part of work by the COVAX facility to provide vaccines to all participating countries, and it is procured and delivered by UNICEF.
It's such a momentous occasion here at the Banjul International Airport. As you can see, the syringes for the COVID-19 vaccines have just arrived here in the Gambia, the smallest country on mainland Africa. And this tells you the true definition of vaccine equity we've been advocating for across all organizations and in partnership with the Gambia government.
The Health Ministry's final vaccination program target is to first vaccinate 20% of the population with groups of the most vulnerable, which includes health workers, the elderly, the security services, and those with underlying health conditions. The Gambia's Health Minister, Dr. Ahmadulamin Samate, welcomes the arrival of the first batch of syringes and is quoted in a joint UNICEF Ministry of Health press release saying, "It is a springboard that better prepares us for the task ahead, the equitable administration of vaccines to Gambians." To complement this shipment, and as a participant of the COVAX facility, the Gambia expects the first batch of vaccines to be delivered tomorrow. The shipment will contain the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine that is manufactured by the Serum Institute of India, the world's largest vaccine manufacturer. Last week, the Medicines Control Agency announced the approval of the vaccine, citing its efficacy and effectiveness. Efficacy is the degree to which a vaccine prevents disease and possibly also transmission under ideal and controlled circumstances, comparing a vaccinated group with a placebo group. Effectiveness, meanwhile, refers to how well it performs in the real world.
There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of WhatsApp messages going around, but we want to assure the general public that the vaccines that are being used by the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare for any public health program and vaccination programs that will probably soon be coming up have gone through the right regulatory process through WHO and also evaluated, and we are happy that the vaccines are safe for use in the population.
The Ministry of Health's Extended Program for Immunization, EPI, is legally mandated to administer vaccines. For an effective and successful vaccination rollout in any country, having a strong cold chain infrastructure is a necessity. Responding to a question on how much preparation there has been on cold chain infrastructure, the EPI manager has given an assurance that the Gambia has the capacity to meet the refrigerated conditions of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine.
Our responsibility is to ensure that there is enough safe storage. Safe storage, I mean, vaccines are perishable biological substances, and they must be kept within a certain temperature for them to remain viable so that they do their work in preventing people from contracting the disease. So that's what we have done so far. There is enough space to keep that vaccine.
Another phase of the battle against the coronavirus pandemic has gained momentum almost exactly a year on from when the virus started to spread across the world. Despite major scientific breakthroughs leading to more understanding of the virus and developments of vaccines from the first to the second wave, our responsible collective effort in the fight against the pandemic is what will bring back the joy of our normal lives before this health crisis. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Great news there. Now, at a signing ceremony on Monday at its embassy in Bigelow, the ambassador of the People's Republic of China to the Gambia announced that his country will donate 2,500 metric tons of rice to the Gambia. Aliu Cisse has the rest of that.
The rice donation agreement was signed by Ambassador Ma Jian-Chun on behalf of China and Foreign Minister Mamadou Tangara on behalf of the Gambia. Since 2017, the Chinese government has donated more than 5,300 tons of rice to the Gambia in an effort to alleviate the short-term food supply shortage. This donation, according to Ambassador Ma Jian-Chun, is also expected to support Gambian families during this pandemic, as he described the two nations as good friends.
As many countries in the world, the Gambia is also facing the challenge of fighting against the epidemic and economic recovery as well. China and the Gambia are good friends. Even though China also suffered from COVID-19 epidemic, China is still willing to provide the rice donation to the Gambia. In the year of 2020, last year, China provided timely assistance to the Gambia to fight against the COVID-19. Now, China's donation of rice aimed to mitigate the COVID-19 epidemic impact on the Gambia's economic development and the people's life.
On behalf of the people and government of the Gambia, Foreign Minister Mamadou Tangara expressed appreciation and gratitude to the people and government of China for always demonstrating their commitment to the Gambia. Minister Tangara congratulated China, whose President Xi Jinping last week announced that China already got the victory in the fight against absolute poverty, with China's 98.99 million impoverished rural residents well lifted from poverty.
We are privileged, we are happy to say that, for example, this year, for the rice donation, Gambia is the only country that benefited from it. That shows the excellence of the relations between the Gambia and the People's Republic of China. And we know that we can count on China as a true friend, as an ally of the Gambia. And I want to state here also that you can count on us as a reliable partner and a strong ally of the People's Republic of China. In the international fora, we support each other, and that support will continue.
Gambians will now be keenly awaiting the arrival of the donation, especially those who need it the most. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliu Cisse.
From that story by Aliu Cisse, we will take a short commercial break. Still to come, we have some more local news stories, business, international, and sports news. Do stay tuned.
ñu ngi leen di nuyu bakkan buy dund dina mos dee jàngoro bi ñuy ooyee COVID-19 ñëpp gis nañ tardement bi mu isi ci suñu réew ak ci àddina bi foogoon nañ nag ne ñu ngi ko mun si wande docteur yi wax nañ ne mu ngi jëlaat doole bon nag ndaw ak mag war nañoo fexe fàggandeku bi nag mooy lan di raxas sa loxo ndax mu set ndax bul wàll kenn bu la kenn wàll mooy nga sol li nga xam ne moo laa dimbale pour aar la te gis ngeen masque yi ñu ne di ko sol dina tax doo wàlla nit du tax keneen wàlla la ñu ne na ngeen fexe itam di soriwaate tuuti soriwaate bi nga xam ne dina tax jàngoro bi di génn ci kii dugaat ci keneen.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now, following the reproduction of excerpts of the fishery legal instruments into English and Mandinka, the National Association of Artisanal Fisheries Operators on Friday held a forum on sustainable management of small pelagic fishery. Mamadou Lamin Choi has the rest of that.
Small pelagic fishery development is directed towards fisheries expansion, which is highly susceptible to overexploitation. Management measures have been implemented for the sustainability of shad fish stocks by Mauritania, Morocco, Senegal and the Gambia. There are many factors threatening our fish stock. These include the negative effects of climate change, illegal fishing, and high demand for fish due to population increase, amongst others. Mamadou Sidibe, the Deputy Director of Fisheries, says the ministry is working on additional management plans to protect certain fish species.
Fisheries legislations have to be clearly understood by all stakeholders for effective implementation. There are currently 2 existing fisheries management plans, and these are salt catfish management plan and oyster and cockle management plans. We are developing additional management plans to respond to present realities for 3 different fish species, including the Seat sardinella, shrimp, and bonga. To sustainably manage these resources, we need a management plan, and we need the support of you stakeholders.
The lack of knowledge among artisanal fishers of legal instruments governing conservation management of fisheries resources, coupled with illiteracy, has made compliance to the regulations difficult. Translating the legal instruments into local languages is an effective way of communicating with grassroots. According to the president of the National Association of Artisanal Fisheries Operators, Fatou Perchoy, stated that with more funding, the excerpts will be translated into other major Gambian languages, including audio recordings for those who are not literate. She further tells us the expected outcome of the forum.
Participant capacity is built in the sustainable management of fisheries resources, particularly the small pelagic fisheries. An action plan is developed and implemented for the sustainable management of the small pelagic fisheries. Transparent is understood and applied. A national multi-stakeholder fisheries transparency committee is established and functional.
Omar Jiba says the book will help people better understand the disadvantages of illegal fishing, and his ministry is at the forefront in sensitizing the public on its effects.
My ministry has got a core mandate, a core responsibility. And the responsibility is what? We have, and we must manage these resources responsibly and sustainably. A lot of talks on private radios have been conducted just to sensitize the population about illegal practices in the fishing sector. But then with this, those going into to fish would try to go buy it. Those of us that stay or come to buy fish would now be opportune to know that, oh, this practice is wrong, this one is right.
The Department of Fisheries has assured the National Association of Artisanal Fisheries Operators that they will be supported not only in their practices, but also with finance to translate the fishery legal instruments into more local languages. It is worth noting that small pelagic fishery is best managed by limited catch taken in the fishery irrespective of the number of size of vessels that fish, as well as by regulating what fishing gear can be used. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
Great initiative there. Now, the Foundation School for Nurse Attendants on Saturday held its second graduation ceremony for the 2018-2019 batch, who had completed 1 year's intensive study and training. More in this report by Ajibintu Drame.
Cheerfulness and excitement is clearly visible on their faces, smartly dressed in colorful gowns to celebrate their wonderful achievement. Margaret Gomez, the director of the Foundation School for Nurse Attendants, expressed pride and urges the graduates to use the knowledge acquired to create and develop the health sector.
These students have gone a hectic 1-year training, 6 months practicals and 6 months theory, with 3 months internship. They were allocated to all the health facilities in the 6 regions and also in the hospitals. I am happy to say that these graduating students have all done their final exams on essay, objective, and practical. In fact, I am pleased to say that 75% of them had distinction.
She further explains the challenges faced by the school and pleads with the government to intervene and help strengthen the institution's capacity.
I am appealing to the Ministry of Local Government and Lands and sponsors to kindly assist us with a venue where students can be properly trained. and the private sector to kindly consider these nurse attendants for employment.
Moro Yabo, representing the Regional Principal Nursing Officer Western 1, congratulated the graduates on their achievement. He further advised the graduates to fulfill the nurses' pledge when carrying out their duties.
They should recognize each individual patient's rights in decision-making. They should be patient advocates, ensure that patients receive all medical information, education, and options in order to choose the option that is best for them.
The nurses' pledge is for the graduates to keep their promises in their professional endeavors.
Pass my life in purity. And to practice my profession faithfully. I will abstain from whatever is deleterious.
Horaja Sen, the matron at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, also gives a word of advice.
Wherever you are, you should always ensure that you do the good practice. Good practice is what is important. Somebody mentioned ethics. Ethics, discipline is very important.
Maimuna Fofana, a graduate, received 2 awards as the Best Outstanding Attendant and the Best Attitude Nurse Assistant accolade. She explains her ambitions for the future.
Presently, I'm at SCN School, State Road Nurses and Midwifery. Right now, I'm pursuing my education at SCN School. Yes, and hoping to fall again. I will tell everyone that, this is not the end of the road. You understand? So many things are ahead of us. Let's still work harder and pursue our education.
Another graduate, Alaji Samate, also received an award for the Best Attitude Nurse Assistant. He shares his future plans.
I am so happy because today is a day that we have to grace because we fought for it. Even if you ask some of the students and some matrons at MRC and all that stuff, they do call me Dr. Samade because I wanted to be a doctor in the near future.
2 remembrance awards were also given to the students who lost their lives during their studies at the institution. The Foundation School for Nurse Attendants was established in July 2017 to give chances to students who obtained low grades after high school to be trained and contribute to the nation's health system. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
Well, congratulations to the graduates. Now we will take a short commercial break. Still to come, international, business and sports news. Do stay tuned. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News, and thank you for staying with us. Now on to some business news. 15 entrepreneurs are attending a week-long training course on the West African Competitiveness Program aimed at promoting better access to regional and international markets. Lola M. Kamara has the rest of that.
The capacity building training is funded by European Union program, facilitated by Startup Incubator Gambia in collaboration with UNIDO to support several selected value chains at national and regional levels. The training package is a management training program developed by International Labour Organization, which is geared towards improving small businesses as a strategy for creating more and better employment, particularly in emerging economies, and to also promote structural transformation and better access to regional and international markets. Aliu Jallo, founder and project coordinator of Startup Incubator Gambia, explains the selection process.
There was a call for application in partnership with ILO and WACOM, West African project, that's a competitive project. And this application was posted on the WACOM website. And we also share information as well from our network and our social media pages. And as a result, we received a lot of applications. And based on these applications, we had to send them what we called the entry form under the SIYB model. So all of them has to fill that information. That information was able to help us categorize them into different stages and finally develop a training need assessment and did use the selection tree. And the selection tree is a process under the ILO model to select the participants for the training.
He implored the participants to take the training seriously and call on other entrepreneurs to join the SIG in providing better business guides. Amadou Gay, national expert with the WACOM project, said the training is important and will help strengthen the competitiveness of West African countries and also enhance entrepreneurs and prepare them for integration into the regional and international trading system.
I expect the participants after these 5 days of training to get a good dose of skills and knowledge about the various thematic areas that they need for their businesses, and that the able trainers in Aliu Jallo and Mohamed Danso are going to deliver, basically around financial management, market access, improving the quality of their products and services, but also developing a business plan.
Amadou Gay further gave a word of advice to the participants.
Work very, very hard, but smart, and follow the advices that are being given, especially through their coaching, and with the support that is expected from UNIDO, of course, financed by the European Union, both technical and financial. We hope that it can take them to another level in terms of expanding their services or products, markets, and also in terms of just growing their business and increasing the bottom line.
Startup Incubator Gambia provides 6 months business incubation and accelerator program, which includes hands-on entrepreneurship training, access to mentors, co-working space, amongst others. Since its establishment in 2015, the SIG has supported over 520 startups, established more than 60 businesses, and created more than 300 jobs. For QTV News, Loli M. Kamara.
Now here are the foreign exchange rates.
Here are the foreign currency exchange rates for the Gambian dalasi against a range of major currencies on Tuesday, 1st March 2021. Against the US dollar, the dalasi is buying at 49.75 to the dollar and selling at 52.15 to the dollar. Against the euro, the dalasi is buying at 59 dalasi to the euro and selling at 63 dalasi to the euro. Against the pound sterling, the dalasi is buying at 67.50 dalasi to the pound and selling at 71.50 to the pound. Against the CFA, which is used in 14 francophone countries of West and Central Africa, the dalasi is buying at $420 to the CFA and selling at $465 to the CFA.
From the foreign exchange rates, now we move on to some international news. Every year on March 1st, the world celebrates Zero Discrimination Day. The day intends to eradicate mental boundaries like sex, gender, race, age, income, ethnicity, drug use, disability, sexual orientation, class, occupation, and religion that continue to persist around the world.
The day is an attempt to view the world through the single lens of humanity and to ensure that all inequalities relating to social norms are defeated. Zero Discrimination Day was first observed in 2014 and was launched by Michel Sidibe, the Executive Director of UNAIDS, on February 27, 2014. According to a UN report, inequality is growing for more than 70% of the global population, aggravating the risks of division and hampering economic and social development. The day comes at a time when the world is adjusting to a new normal life after fighting the COVID-19 pandemic for over a year. Discrimination and inequalities are closely entangled. Intersecting forms of discrimination, whether structural or social, against individuals and groups can lead to a wide range of inequalities. For example, in income, educational outcomes, health, and employment. However, inequalities themselves can also lead to stigma and discrimination. It is therefore critical when looking to reduce inequalities to address discrimination. Members of key populations are often discriminated against, stigmatized, and in many cases criminalized and targeted by law enforcement. Research has shown that this social and structural discrimination results in significant inequalities in access to justice and in health outcomes. The commitment to tackling inequality in the world is not a new one. In 2015, all countries pledged to reduce inequality within and between countries as part of the Sustainable Development Goals, but this was not achieved. However, fulfilling the promise to tackle inequality will save millions of lives and benefit society as a whole. For this to happen, discrimination must be confronted in all its forms. And to achieve dignity for all, political, economic, and social policies need to protect the rights of everyone and pay attention to the needs of underprivileged and marginalized communities. In a press statement, the UNAIDS Executive Director, Michel Sidibe, described this year's Zero Discrimination Day as a heartbreaking one. He demanded an end to discrimination, stigmatization, and criminalization, while challenging all institutions and all people of influence to not only be non-discriminatory, but to be anti-discrimination. He said ending inequalities will advance the human rights of all, make societies better prepared to beat COVID-19 and future pandemics, and support economic recovery and stability. He, however, went on to say that he is inspired by the leadership shown by communities facing discrimination, adding that their determination, courage, and vision is their guiding light. Ending inequalities requires transformative change. Greater efforts are needed to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, and there is a need to invest more in health, education, social protection, and decent jobs. Yahya Jao.
Now, the defeated opposition candidate in the recently concluded presidential election in Niger has appealed to the newly elected president to release the political prisoners and stop harassing and threatening activists.
Over 700 people have been reportedly arrested since protests broke out following the announcement that the ruling party candidate, Mohamed Bazoum, had won the presidential runoff. The defeated opposition candidate and a former president who was toppled by a coup in 1996, Mahamine Usman, accused Niger's Interior Minister, Al-Kachi Al-Hada, of the unrest and detention of several opposition protesters. He has also appealed to the international community not to recognize the results on the grounds of what he calls gross irregularity. His supporters took to the streets after he rejected the results announced by the National Electoral Commission, giving victory to the 61-year-old former Interior Minister Bazoum with just over 55% of the vote in the election runoff, beating 71-year-old Mahamine Usman, who polled 44% of the vote. According to Usman, however, and I quote, "The compilation of results which we have in our possession through our representatives in the various polling stations gave us victory with 50.3% of the vote against 49.7% for the ruling candidate. In the first round of the polls, Bazoum received 39.3% of the votes, while Usman managed almost 17%. The runoff results are provisional and must be submitted to the analysis of the Constitutional Court, according to the Electoral Commission. Even before the results were declared, the former president, Usman, had alleged fraud, claiming that there had been theft, ballot box stuffing, and threats against voters without providing evidence. Beginning on Wednesday, protests erupted with tires set alight and opposition supporters facing off with police who chased them and used tear gas on them. A senior security source reportedly said those arrested included former Armed Forces Chief of Staff who was suspected of fomenting unrest. The election was meant to usher in Niger's first transition from one democratically elected leader to another, after President Mahamadou Issoufou announced he was stepping down after 2 5-year terms. Niger, the world's poorest nation, according to the United Nations Development Rankings for 189 countries, has been marred by coups since the country's independence from France in 1960. It is currently affected by a spillover of violence from 2 jihadist insurgencies in neighboring Mali and Nigeria. Bazoum thanked voters on Twitter after the result was announced, saying he would be a loyal servant to confront all the problems the country is facing. How he handles the current tension will put that claim to the test. For Qtv News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
From that story by Mamadou Mbouch, let's take a look at sports. I am joined by my colleague Momodu Gajaga. Momodu Gajaga, thank you so much for joining us. What is happening in the world of sports?
It's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk about sports. Well, we will begin in the Africa Under-20 Cup of Nations, which is currently going on in Mauritania, where the Gambia played its semi-final against Ghana. And guess what? It is Precious Boer's free kick that made the difference for Ghana. Obviously, they're through to the final of the competition. Gambia is not yet completely out because we still have a third and fourth place to play on Friday. So it's not all over until it is all over yet in the championship, that is the Under-20 AFCON in Mauritania. Very exciting match. But today, the missing link in the Gambian team was Wali Fofana, Lamarana Jallo, and also Kajali Drame. That connection didn't work quite well, and Ghana defended very, very well as well. And there were some mistakes made by the Gambian team, which is obviously expected in football. Away from that, we are going to move to talk about women's football. Female players have expressed their frustration over the delayed start of their league in the Gambia, and this was like 10 months ago. Because of the COVID-19 restrictions, league football has been stopped or cancelled by the Gambia Football Federation. Recently, I visited Jara Summer Football Field where Quintes played against Heart FC, and in that friendly, you will get the reactions of both teams. First, let's get into the details of the report. In the absence of league football for the last 10 months, friendly matches appear to be the only option for these players. The female league was abruptly cancelled almost midway last season after government-imposed restrictions to cope the spread of COVID-19. Fatou Manjang, the captain of Heart FC, expresses her frustration.
It's not been easy. It's frustrating because training day in, day out without playing any league. But we are hopeful that they would put us into consideration and fasten up the infrastructure and get back to doing what we do.
Despite being a second division team, Heart FC played some good football, though the scoreline tells a completely different story. Quintes eventually won 3-0, but not until their goal machine Adama Tamba came on in the second half as a substitute to score a brace. She says training without competition is hard.
Yeah, it's so hard because we have been starting for training for a long time, for a long period. So we are here to have a test game. As much as we can have a test game, it will make us improve more. Yeah.
There is huge uncertainty about when the Women's League would start. The main reason for the delay is shortage of pitches. At least 3 grounds, among them Banjul, Brikama and Manjai, are earmarked for renovation, leaving the Independence Stadium, the National Technical Training Center field, which is now the Usman Saho field, and Basori as the only available grounds to use. Currently, only the male league is being played across these 3 venues.
We've been training for like 4 months back. Sometimes it's like when you see a text message comes in or a call and then you see that your players asking, Coach, when is the league starting? Sometimes we are training, we are not seeing any games, we didn't see any league drafted or to see that there is a table fixed. Sometimes it's definitely frustrating.
Women's football often faces challenges such as underfunding, poor marketing and low technical capacity. Despite these, the trend is slowly changing. A lot more needs to be done in addressing the cultural barriers, especially in the rural and provincial areas. Fatou Marega is the regional women's football coordinator at the Lower River region.
Most of the challenges we face is these cultural practices because people believe that football is not meant for women, it's meant for men. So sometimes these are some of the challenges we face on the side of the parents and also in the community at large. And sometimes we do have discriminations and other stuffs, and sometimes that is financial support too, are things that we always have as challenges when it comes to women football.
We reached out to the GFF for comment on the issue. They said in a statement, as you know, most of our grounds are closed for renovation to improve the standard of football, we currently have only 2 grounds available at our disposal. This is the Usman Saho ground at the Old Yundum and the Real de Banjul field at Basore. The Independence Stadium is not accessible to us because of the upcoming important AFCON qualifier against Angola at the end of this month. For women hoping to play in Gambia's league, the wait continues. Umudu Gajaga, QTV News. Indeed, the wait continues as far as women's football is concerned. The league, that is, it's still delayed. It's not yet starting anytime soon. Back to you, Jenny, but that's all we have for you in the sports.
Thank you so much, Mamadou Gajaga. It's always good to have you here. But congratulations to the Scorpions for making it this far anyway. Now, before we end this news bulletin, let's take a quick look at our main stories. A survivor of the 2005 massacre of West African migrants has related his ordeal to the TRRC and how he managed to escape and survive. The Gambia has become one of the first countries consignment of syringes from the COVAX facility for equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. At a signing ceremony on Monday at its embassy in Bijilo, the ambassador of the People's Republic of China to the Gambia announced that his country will donate 2,500 metric tons of rice to the Gambia. In international news, every year on 1st March, the world celebrates Zero Discrimination Day, a day to think about eliminating all forms of discrimination. In sports news, Gambia's under-20 football team lost the AFCON semi-finals against Ghana. Women footballers in Gambia have expressed their frustrations at the ongoing delay to the start of their league season. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Do join us tomorrow, same time for more news. Thanks for watching and do take care of yourselves.